This is Watch the Media. I'm John Shrader. This time around, we're chatting with local radio host Connor Happer. Started at 93.7 The Ticket in Lincoln, and now has been at 1620 The Zone in Omaha for a number of years. And early in 2026, he moved from the middle of the day to the early mornings. We're going to talk about that and a number of other things, including the Huskers and the Blue Jays, coming up on this episode of the show. Morning, noon, or night, whatever it is, Connor Happer is willing to do the radio at 1620 The Zone. Earlier in 2026, Connor moved from the middays to the mornings, and he's been kind enough to spend a little time with us to talk about that and other things. Connor, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been wondering when I was going to get the invite for a long time. We finally connected a week or so ago, so it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I guess if Sharp, your former associate, and Bishop and Peterson make it on there, and
exactly,
and the newcomer Matt McMaster, I guess I didn't mean to give you a complex, but I appreciate that this was important enough to you to think that it was my turn.
It worked. I mean, you really honed in on the one thing that gets me, which is jealousy. You know, especially of my coworkers and my friends. Man, if they're doing something, I gotta jump on board.
Yeah, well, you know, that can drive you. That can drive you to great things if you keep track of everybody else. So, hey, you are relatively new in this business. I want to say maybe a decade-ish.
Yeah, I've been doing daily radio in Nebraska since August of 2015. So, yeah, a little more than a decade now.
Okay, so 11 whole years. Yep. And you've done a lot. You know, we're going to talk about the transition, because doing a middle of the day show and a morning show is a different groove, not just because you have to get up in the middle of the night to go do it, but where did you cut your teeth, and how did you cut your teeth? Where did you basically learn, assuming that you're still learning, but where did you begin to learn the radio business?
Well, I was at 93.7 The Ticket in Lincoln. That's where I started. Friend of mine who I'd known for a long time, Lanny Holstein, He told me to come intern, and I didn't know what really that meant. I was sort of in the broadcasting school at the time at UNL, and just didn't really have a direction or anything I wanted to do. But I knew I liked sports, and so I ended up at the Ticket, and really, I mean, just talking about sports. I'm like, oh, this is what we do here. We talk about sports, and you know, eventually you get a couple breaks, and people leave, and whatever happens, and I found myself, you know, not long after joining in there on the morning show with two of my best friends at the time, Jake Sorensen, who's still at the Ticket in Lincoln doing the same show, and Lanny Holstein. And so it was the three of us for 2 hours, I think, every morning. And we had no idea what we were doing. And we were all in our early to mid 20s. And we did the show the best that we possibly could, but we had fun. And then you look around and you start to, you know, see people around you who are doing it and doing it really well. And you pick up things where I was working with guys like John Gaskins and Mike Welch at the time. Early on, Adrian Fiala was there, and he had a show for an hour. And so there was a ton of different people to sort of glean from. And then, you know, just listening to and watching sports throughout my life. And so that's sort of where I started at the Ticket in 2015.
How can you be sort of in the broadcasting school? What does that mean? Sort of in.
All right. So this is I went to college at first to play baseball at Southwestern Community College in Creston, Iowa. It's sort of a long story to get there. Played baseball, loved baseball, and then, you know, pretty quickly realized that just junior college baseball wasn't for me, or what. I left after a semester, and I came home and worked a little bit, and, you know, didn't do much. And I went to Lincoln the next fall, and because my friends were going there in Nebraska, and you know, did the dorm and everything, and decided that my major was going to be turf grass management. And because I wanted to be on a grounds crew, or I was interested in I just wanted to be involved with sports somehow. The idea was like to be on a major league grounds crew or something like that.
You're the first person I've ever met who wanted to do turf grass management.
It was like it still is something that's really interesting to me to this day. But I realized once I got into school that I am no chemist, and I that is not up my alley. And there's a lot of stuff. Turns out there's a lot of stuff that you have to learn about how the grass actually grows before you make the grass look good.
Damn.
And so that was a stopping point for me, and I didn't know what I was doing and where I was going. And I kind of was transitioning at the time over to the School of Journalism, the School of Broadcast Journalism, without really a direction other than, okay, this is my next option to try and go down a path to be in sports somehow. And my buddy Lanny was doing that, and I was like, let's start here. And that's where it was. So I guess he caught me right in the transition period where I was kind of in it.
Yeah, you and where's Lanny Holstein now?
He is a lawyer in Denver. He is a great. He was a fantastic radio show host and a tremendous personality. One of the funniest guys ever, and really I've worked with a couple people along the way who were just probably a little bit too smart, probably to do sports talk radio. And he's
no, never too smart for that.
It's a bit of a lowbrow deal. Not that he's a highbrow guy, but I think he's put his time into more productive things.
Well, at some point, I guess people think they need a real job, and maybe that's a real job. I'm not sure. My son is a lawyer, so I think it's a real job. So yeah, there you go.
He likes it, and it's certainly, I think he probably gets a little bit more out of it.
Yeah. You so you were at you leave 93.7 the ticket, and you go to 1620 the Zone in Omaha, and you're doing middays. You're doing 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and you did that for how long?
5 years. So I always got to make sure the dates are right here. So I think I joined in January, like first day back from break, January of 22, I guess it would have been. Mm-hmm. And did that show for that period of time. I had met Josh Odson, who is my producer, for that amount of time, and is one of my great friends, like a week before that. And we did not know what the show was going to look like. There was some indecision behind the scenes of what show I was going to be on and what my actual job was going to be. And then, a week or so out, it was like, you're going to do the midday show and you're going to do it solo. That's where Gary Sharp had been before. And so I took his spot there, and then him and Damon got back together on the morning show. And I had never done a solo show. I'd never done it for 4 hours, and I had never met the person that I was doing it with. And so you learn a lot about yourself and about how to do a show during that period of time. It ended up being a ton of fun. I thought we had a really good show.
So doing a midday show and doing a morning show is a little bit like saying, green is not the same as pink. Yeah, they're both colors, but they really are different kind of grooves, right? Could you help us understand the difference in doing the show? You have a partner in the morning, Mike Schaefer. You didn't have a partner in the midday, so that's different. But how else? What else is different about radio those 2 times a day?
I think there's an expectation, at least from my experience, and I suppose you can mess with this depending on, where you're at or just your type of personality in general. I think there's the expectation of a little bit of a quicker pace in the morning to move things along a little bit faster. You don't lose people. They're quick drives to work, 15, 20 minutes, stuff like that. And I think on the midday show, part of this, it worked out because of necessity, because I was trying to figure out how to do a 4-hour show by myself and get to know Josh Odson at the same time. But it sort of worked out where we could do these sort of longer form, we, him and haw, and then longer interviews and whatever it is. And it sort of worked out that way.
How long did it take you, do you think, before the light went on and said, oh, I kind of know what I'm doing here? How long did it take?
I mean, I still say this to this, and starting a new show is one of the hardest things to do. It doesn't matter if you know the person, and I've known Mike Schaefer for years, and we've actually done a show together. Like we have done a daily radio show together. But I always say, like, for the first 6 months or a year, you're going to leave sometimes and go back home and say, I don't actually think I'm good at this. I might be bad at this. I don't feel good about how it went. I don't feel good about where it's going or whatever it is, but you just keep plugging away and you do it. And so I don't know if there's ever a light switch. I don't know if there's ever a light bulb that comes on and says, oh, actually we're making this work. But all of a sudden those days where you're wondering about what's going on and how good you are or whatever, there's less and less of them, and you don't really know it until it happens.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, while you're developing chemistry and you're trying to figure out what the commutes are so we can work the radio around the 23 minutes that somebody's in their car. Oh, and get some ratings while you're at it, and get some listeners while you're at it, while you're learning how to do this. So there's a lot of balls that are juggling in the air, right?
Yeah, and being in Omaha compared to being in Lincoln, we certainly care more about the ratings and how they look in a more competitive market at the time. And so I was learning that for the first time too, and leaning on some people around me and some people who had been in their spots for a long time. And man, I walked into an awesome situation because in between me was two really, although Gary and Damon weren't necessarily reestablished yet, people knew exactly what that show was. And then after me, John and Josh had been on the air for a decade, and that show in particular had been on the air for longer, double that. So yeah, I walked into an awesome situation with a great team around me, and then Josh obviously was fantastic as well. But it was some of those. I remember that some of those first few months of the shows were like, all right, can I find a way to squeeze 20 minutes out of this topic and stuff like that? Because you learn about the pace of your voice and just slow down. You don't have to get all the thoughts out at once, and you kind of have to trust yourself a little bit. And that's what I learned to do.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to just rely on this clock that's working in your head. And if you think that you've milked the topic, you've probably gone too far, right? You
Exactly.
want to end that before you've said your last word on it. Leave the audience wanting something more, right?
Yep, and then have more to bring to the table. So
yeah. Tomorrow,
over prepare and occasionally under prepare, but it's all part of just figuring out exactly how to make it work.
It's like calling a game. You never want to use all the material you prepared for. When you're done with a radio show, do you say, okay, well, we left this and this and this and this. We'll get to it tomorrow, maybe.
Yep.
That's okay.
And then we end up never getting to it. If I don't, there will be days where I'll really, know what topic I want to do at what time, and because I know that's the big one, and we got to hit it at the most important moment, whatever it is. But sometimes there's like a tie for what the biggest topic is of the day, and we'll leave it off to the side. And we'll say, oh, well, we got that for tomorrow, and then we never get to that either. And so there's just so much stuff that just gets left on the cutting room floor. Hey, we planned that entire segment and never did it. And that happens in every industry, I would think.
The audience doesn't know what you didn't do. And there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that you don't want them to know about because you've just been through a disaster. It's chaos, and you don't want the audience to know.
I was going to say it's probably a good thing if they already have opinions on what we did do, so they don't want to know what we didn't do.
You get the phone call that says, Connor, I'm not sure if it's a question or a statement. Would you like to do the mornings, or you're doing the mornings? I'm not sure. Maybe you can help me with that. But what's that conversation like?
It was more of a statement for sure. I had some questions that were, I don't know, couldn't have been answered probably in the moment as to kind of what was going on and the direction and a variety of different things. But, ultimately, you get called in and you get an email and it says, hey, come up and see us after the show ends.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And it's right. It's at the time of the year where, it's getting close to the end of a contract and things of that nature. And you're just like, okay, I thought it's been going pretty well. And you just sort of like your life flashes before your eyes. And I would have been happy to stay in the midday spot for as long as they would have done. I had been asking for a co-host and to add there for a long time, and I kind of didn't really think it was going to happen, so I kind of just accepted that's the way it was going to go. And then to get the news that it was going to the morning, and then for how it happened was a shock that happened all at once. And then you have to turn around and figure out how you're going to do it, and then do it. And and like I said, it's hard to start over. And so you're thinking about all those different things right away. Man, you gotta do that. I was in a pretty good groove. I liked it. I liked where we were headed. I liked where we were. And then you got to start all over again. And you have, and that, when Gary's not going to be a part of the conversation, Gary Sharp's not going to be a part of the conversation anymore in the morning show. And I have to sort of be the guy who is the steady hand through that spot. It's, not going to sit well with the public, and deservedly so. He'd been in that spot for a long time and been a consistent voice in the community, in the sports talk, world in Omaha and in Nebraska in general. And so I knew those first couple shows were going to be tough. And they were, but I think we survived the storm, at least a little bit. And now we're getting ready for football season.
For the record, Gary Sharp was let go. He had been doing the morning shows with Matt McMaster after Damon Benning left. And so Gary was let go. They put McMaster on your slot in the middle of the day, and now you're joined by Mike Schaefer. Why Mike Schaefer, and how did you build some chemistry there if you needed to do that with him?
Well, I mean, Schaefer and I are really good friends, and it's something that we sort of talked about. As I mentioned before, I'd kind of just been at times pitching Schaefer to our bosses and saying, hey, I think, he might be available when we do a good show together. That, when I was hosting the midday show, and because we had done a show for my last few months, in Lincoln, and we called it Happer and Schaefer. And that was before that we did the recruiting hour, which is a 1 hour show. And he was a recruiting guy. And so we had good chemistry, and we knew what a show would be like. And so he was a pretty easy slam dunk pick. So we didn't have to really do much to build chemistry outside of just the repetitions of doing the show every day again, which you underestimate at the time. You're like, oh yeah, this guy's my really good friend and we've done a show together. I'm not even gonna have to think about it. And then you do, because it's a different world doing 4 hours every day.
Now, it's pretty easy in Nebraska to fall into the trap of doing Huskers. It is now football season, so you do more Huskers. But how do you find that mix with Huskers and Creighton and Omaha and pop culture and other things that should and do interest the audience besides, and I hate to, don't throw tomatoes at me in the neighborhood here, besides the Huskers?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, I always say that if you are passionate about it, the audience will be able to tell, number one, and be engaged at least a little bit more with what you have to say, as long as you do it in an entertaining way. And so I can't be passionate about Nebraska football for 4 hours every show every day. I can't. I wish I could. I don't have the stamina to do it. And so we have to talk about other stuff, and I am passionate about other things, and I like, having fun on shows, and I like making fun. I'm passionate about making fun of stuff, and I'm passionate about Creighton basketball, things that are happening there. And I know that every time we talk about, Creighton 2 weeks before football season starts, people are going to be like, hey, did you guys know that football's coming right around the corner? Or, even we got one today from somebody who was listening to our crossovers, which are crossovers between the two shows, with our show and Matt, and then with Matt's show and Unsportsmanlike Conduct. People will still join it. They'll send us a message and they'll say, hey, why are you guys talking about ice cream for 15 minutes and mac and cheese and for 15 minutes or whatever it was? We're like, that's kind of what we do on the crossover. And so I think some of it is just kind of training the audience to tell them we are going to talk about different stuff. We're not going to talk about Nebraska football all the time. And that's another reason why the on-demand listening is a pretty nice deal too, because there's always a Husker segment every day.
Yeah. What do you think you would do or would like to do if you weren't doing radio?
I would like to. I've been really involved with some behind the scenes stuff at like I've been the PA guy for Nebraska women's basketball for the last 10 years. And I'm now pretty heavily involved with Creighton's game day operations in a bunch of different sports. And I love that part of it, the creation of the game day atmosphere. And then even in a different world, the sort of like administrative side of things. I mean, think specifically whether it's in college athletics or professional athletics, inside of a front office or, like something involved with being on a team and making that team as good as you possibly can make it. That's why I've been really drawn to doing stuff with Creighton. They really make me feel, a part of the team. And I like helping their operation look really good. And so I'm happy to be a cog in the wheel there. So I don't know exactly what it would be. Just like I didn't know that I would be doing sports radio for 10 plus years when I started doing this that amount of time ago. But I think it would be in sports.
Yeah. For the record, my daughter and her husband both are Creighton University grads. So there you go.
There you go.
They don't live in Nebraska any longer, but they definitely are. So you not only do the radio show every day, 5 days a week, 4 hours a day, that's 20 hours. That's a lot. But you have a little time to work with Mitch Sherman in the Locked On Network, Locked On Nebraska, where you do talk about only Husker stuff for anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes on a day. When do you do that, and how often do you do that?
Mitch and I also are passionate Royals fans, so
I'm commiserating with you on that one as well right now. So.
I apologize if we sneak in like a little bit too much Royals talk in some of the episodes, but not around this time of year when it's August and they're well out of the playoff race. So it was really, we had it pretty much down to a T when I was doing the midday show. We would tape at 8:00 every morning. And then I would be out the door by 9 and be on the air at 10. And it would be, perfect. Taping the show at 3 is not a great option for me. I don't think it's a great option for anybody, 3:00 in the morning. And so we kind of just make it work on a daily basis. Usually we kind of get something knocked out about 7 or 8 at night, which is tough. I have a young daughter at home, and we're trying to get it's been 8 months now, and I'm still trying to figure out what the right timing is for everything. And now we're going into another football season, and there's stuff going on at night and stuff like that. But we'll always be able to find an hour and knock one out. And nowadays the topics, they sort of just make themselves. It's good. Mitch is awesome. We just get to kind of riff on whatever is happening in the day of Nebraska land.
So you have been doing that with him for how long now?
I think we're going into our third football season. So that would have been, I think, March or April of 24. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you do that. Do you do it 5 days a week?
Yeah. 5 shows a week. Yep. And sometimes we'll do even a 6th, like post game, or a Sunday wrap up show or something like that during the season.
If you're all not familiar with this, what Locked On Network is, they basically are hyper focused on one thing, Locked On the Utah Jazz, which would be appropriate because the founder of the company is the voice of the Utah Jazz. But it's hyper focused on one thing, which is really what podcasts should be, is focused on one thing and going after a particularly niche audience, I think. You?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Unless the personality is so big where you could be like, this show's about what's on my mind, you know, and you need a pretty big start to get somewhere like that. But the podcast network, the Locked On Network is really cool. I didn't even really know much about it until, Mitch was approached by David, I think, and and he wanted to do it, and he needed a co-host, and he asked me. So I got really lucky in that regard. It's been awesome to do.
And they do financially compensate you, I understand. So that's good too.
It's nice. Yeah,
that's nice.
It's a great little side hustle. I got a bunch of little side hustles that are helping me out.
I don't think anybody in the business, when I worked in San Francisco, I had at least one or two side hustles all the time. I'm not sure there's anybody in the business. Not only does it pay a little bit better, but it also broadens your exposure, broadens your reach, gets your network of people a little bit wider. Because as you know, you might be the next guy who gets the phone call that says somebody else is doing your time slot now. So if you don't keep that net as wide as possible, you're probably not in the business. Right?
100%. I mean, there is, when I moved to Omaha, I started doing stuff emceeing with the Omaha Storm Chasers, and so many people, and I haven't done really any games for the last 2 years, and still people will come up to me, or they'll email the show and they'll say, "Hey, are you coming back to do Storm Chasers games?" Or it's the same thing with Creighton, and knowing so many more people there now, and with Nebraska over the years too. Huge. I know infinitely more people who are both involved with the everyday production of these sports teams that we know and love around here, and that are just fans of them. It's been a cool community to be a part of.
This is going to be a two-part question here as we sort of wind this down. And the first part of it is, what are the greatest challenges of what you do? And then what are the greatest joys that come out of what you do?
Challenges. I think it's the time aspect of it for me. Like I said, I mean, got a young family, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what's the right amount of time to be dedicated to this. And when I was younger, and I'm still pretty young, but when I didn't have a kid, basically it wasn't as much of a thing. It wasn't as much of a thing that I thought about very much, because I could just say, hey, you need me right now, I'll be there, no questions asked. And now it's, you need me in 2 weeks, okay, tell me, because I gotta put that thing on my schedule. So I think the time part of it, and the weekends, and the times away at night and in the morning, in my current situation and stuff like that. So it's a constant state of trying to figure out, what's best. And I never really said no up until over the last couple of years. You start kind of winding things down, paring things in at least a little bit, as far as how you're getting stretched in the world that I live in. So I think it's that. The greatest joy, I think, like I said, is the connection with people, and being involved with the production of these teams. I mean, it shouldn't be that surprising to if anybody comes up to me and says, you look like you're having a lot of fun out there, that is the greatest compliment that you could possibly give me, because I am. And if it ever looks like I'm not having fun, whether it's doing the radio show or emceeing, whatever, then that's probably when we got a problem on our hands. So I'll do it as long as people keep coming up to me and telling me that.
Yeah, that is what you do want to hear from folks. And that is, you look like you're enjoying yourself. I love listening to you. I love being around when you're on the radio. One quick question about Husker football, and that is Matt Rule comes into year number 4 with, I don't know if the toughest schedule in the country, but certainly one of them. Right now, everything is, we got a better offensive line. We're looking forward to it. We got a quarterback. All optimism and friendliness. Is it still going to be the same about like early November?
Early November. Now, they could still be in a good spot in early November, but it's a good point that you make, because this is the most optimistic time of the year. In fact, like 10 minutes before kickoff on September 5th, that's about the most optimistic time that you're going to possibly get. But they are experienced. I love that. I think that wins in the Big Ten. They got a quarterback who's thrown for 7,500 yards in his career at a bunch of different places. And they got an offensive line. We were doing the math today on the morning show. They got an offensive line. The top 6 guys have over 120 career starts underneath their belts. That's significant. That's a big deal. And so I'm definitely trending optimistic. more optimistic than I was in February and March. That's for sure. I don't know if it's going to get me to 9 wins or even 8 wins, but because of that schedule that you mentioned. But I think you might actually have fun watching Nebraska football this year, and that might not be a bad thing.
Well, and you also get an opportunity to see two of the greatest teams in the country at home. Indiana and Ohio State are both here. They do have Oregon on the road and Washington at home, but they have two of the best teams in the two national championship contenders in Lincoln. So there you go.
I love that. And imagine the excitement that would have been if they would have been playing Tennessee instead of Bowling Green in a few weeks here. That would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, rule needs to win 7 or 8 games. He didn't need Tennessee on the schedule. Yeah,
they'll take the wins wherever they could get them. But I love when great teams come in. People get scared when great teams come in. Like, I don't want to lose, whatever. I think that engages your fan base. That's what we do. Like, to bring it back to the show and whatever. Like, the most engaging times we have is, yes, when the team is good, but when they are collectively against something. And those games against Colorado the last 2 years, or 2 years, the 2 years in a row, and then in 18 and 19 as well. Man, that was a time where people were just like, I'm really into this. That was really fun. And so those are the type of times that we love to get to. So if they're 5-0 or 5-0 going into Indiana, maybe we'll get one of those times again.
The longer I'm in this, and I've been in this for a long time, 50th year of doing this, and celebrating my 50th year. And the more I'm in it and around it, the more I appreciate good games, quality teams, fun matchups, the atmosphere. Long ago, I lost I'm living and dying with these teams. Now, I'm a Chiefs fan, and I'm delighted to tell people they've won 3 championships. I'm a Royals fan and delighted to tell you they've won 2, but I don't know that I can wait another 20 years like they did last time for that. But as an observer of this, I just want the game to be good. I want I want it to be fun for me. I want to enjoy it. I don't want it to be a slog.
100%. Yeah, and that's what people are asking when they show up to the stadium. And you don't want to have this existential dread when you're thinking about your favorite team. That's no fun. Come on, like let's have fun with this. So I always encourage people around this time of year, even though all the alarms are going off in your brain, to not be excited, don't drink the Kool-Aid, all this different stuff. You are allowed, and you should be, that is healthy, to be excited about your team. You don't have to predict that they're going to win the national championship and go undefeated, but you're allowed to be excited, and that's part of why I love this time of year.
Well, I would say that if you predicted they were going to win the national championship and go undefeated, there'd be somebody with a straitjacket outside the door waiting for you. So
they carry you pretty quick, right?
Yeah. Well, Connor, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it, and I'm sorry it's taken us so long to do this.
Now on the second time around, we got to make sure I'm first, I guess.
That's it. The next rotation, you're first. Okay, there you go.
Thanks for having me, John.
I promise you. Great. Thanks a lot. I know you're a busy guy, and I appreciate it. And have a great day.
Yep. You too. Bye.
All right. Thanks to Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone for spending a little time with us. He does the mornings with Mike Schaefer. It's Happer and Schaefer in the mornings at 1620 The Zone. He had been the midday guy there for a number of years, and before that worked at 93.7 The Ticket in Lincoln. And he's been kind enough to spend some time with us on Watch the Media. I'm John Shrader.